good morning, and good morning. Here we go. Day 8 of 35 days of Unbound. Unbound, the state of living in true autonomy, living in freedom for life, day by day, moment by moment, breath by breath. I want to start with something honest this morning. Transformation is not always pleasant. It hurts. And it doesn't hurt all the time, not every step, but certain thresholds, really the ones that sometimes matter the most, the ones where something real is changing. I mean, it hurts. And one of the things that I've noticed in the personal development, I hate that phrase, world though, is how quickly we rush past the grief or the pain. How we want to get to the insight, to be able to write down the breakthrough, talk about the growth. Hey, look at this new chapter. Somebody asked me the other day, what is this, James 3.0? I said, no, this is James Prime. 3 absolute years of the true original me. We don't have to give any real time or wait to what it costs to get there, right? We just want to get there. We want to show the world the new. But I say that the true has a great cost. And the cost is everything. Everything that you know, everything that you thought, everything that you believed has to be brought under the microscope and into the light. I want to do the opposite this morning. I want to talk about grief. I don't want to get away from it. What it actually is in the context of growing and freedom and transformation. It is not a detour. Some of us look at grief as this, oh my gosh, if I could just get past this grief. When I get past this grief, it's going to be so much better. I want to talk about why people who skip grief almost always have to come back. You can't get away from it. People who have spent years avoiding grieving, one day will have a time where they'll slip and fall into that grief and they will never escape it. Every real transformation involves loss, guys. Every real transformation. This sounds obvious when you say it out loud, right? But I don't think most of us actually believe it. We think, or hope, that transformation is purely additive. We just add. That we're just going to get some clarity. We're going to add freedom. We're going to add aliveness without losing anything in the process. But it doesn't work that way, because the life you've been living, however constructed, however performance-based, however out of alignment with your actual self, that life has real things in it, real relationships, real routines, real structures, real beliefs, real things that people depended on and that you in some way found comfort in. And so when you begin to change, some of those things change too. Some of them have to go. And even when you know they have to go, even when you are certain that the life on the other side of the threshold is truer and fuller and freer, the going is still going to cost you something. And that cost has a name, and it's called grief. Grief. You're going to have grief for the version of yourself you're leaving behind. You're going to have grief tied with regret. Because even when that version wasn't fully yours, even when it was constructed from invisible contracts and inherited stories and survival adaptations, you lived in it. That was who you were for a while in the mirror. You built things inside of this container. And leaving it feels like loss, because it is. Grief for the relationships that can't survive the transition. Not all of them, but some. The ones that were built around your limitation rather than your true self. There are some people that loved the masked version of you, and when you showed them the truth, they no longer loved you. There were some of them that loved what you provided for them, and when you realized that you didn't have to continue to do that, then they didn't love you. They only loved the provision. The ones that needed you to stay small in order to function. Leaving those is loss, even when it's the right choice. And grief for the life you thought you were building, the plan, the structure, the version of the future and the dream you've been imagining. When transformation comes and reorganizes everything, even the future has to be rebuilt. And the loss of the imagined future is real, even though the imagined future was never real. I've grieved hard. I grieved hard in those 35 days between March the 4th and April the 8th, 2023. And not all of it is mine to say publicly, and I'm not going to. But I want you to know that the road from March 4th to April 8th was not just insight and breakthrough. It was genuine loss. The loss of a version of my life I had invested decades into. Relationships, structures, a future I had built in my imagination that was not going to be the future that actually came. And the grief was real. I didn't skip it. I could not have skipped it even if I wanted to. Here's what I learned in the middle of it all. Grief, when you don't run from it, when you let it be what it actually is rather than trying to get away from it, or worse, try to fix it or explain it, or move too quickly through it. Grief does something. It clears. Not immediately, not comfortably, of course, but it clears. It creates space. It empties out the rooms that were still full of the old life so that the new one has somewhere to go. On April 8th, 2023, I woke up into rooms that had been emptied by grief. And I found them full of something I had never felt before. A groundedness, a clarity, an aliveness that had been waiting for exactly that much space to move into. And I'm convinced that the freedom I discovered on April 8th, 2023 was only possible because I did not skip the grief before it. Hall moment. Honesty aligns liberation's language. The hall moment in grief is this. The moment you stop trying to get past it and let it complete. The honesty is the admission that something real was lost, that the loss mattered. And you're allowed to mourn it, not indefinitely, not as an identity, but fully as an act of honoring what was. When that honesty lands, something aligns. You stop splitting your energy between moving forward and managing the grief. You let the grief do what the grief is designed to do, clear the space. And in that cleared space, the language of the next chapter begins to form. The hall moment of grief is not the worst thing you'll experience in this work. It's the most sacred, or one of the most sacred. But unresolved grief does something. I want to spend a moment on this because I see it consistently in the people that I work with every day. Unresolved grief, the grief that was never allowed to be grief, that was labeled as weakness or spiritualized away or simply too busy and distracted to sit in it, doesn't disappear. It goes underground, and it becomes the low hum underneath everything, the chronic dissatisfaction, the frustration, the resentment, the numbness, the sense of performing a life rather than living one. Unresolved grief is one of the primary fuels for the invisible contract. Because when we can't mourn what we've lost, we often find ways to keep it alive instead, to maintain the structures, to try to continue to chase the relationships, to keep the dead identities or the false identities alive that are finished. Because letting them actually be finished would require feeling the loss, see? And so we stay, not in freedom, in preservation, keeping things on life support that needed to be allowed to end. Grief honored and completed is what makes endings real. And real endings are what make genuine new beginnings possible. So here's your practice today, just a question to sit with. What am I not letting myself grieve right now? Not for the sake of suffering, not to extend the loss, for the sake of honoring what was real, for the sake of clearing the space, for the sake of the next chapter that cannot fully arrive until you let this one fully end. Give yourself permission today to feel what you actually feel about what has actually been lost. Not forever, just today. Let it be real. Witness and experience what that feels like. Day 8. We're building something week by week. tomorrow we move to the third stage in the pathway, courageous. And this one is going to surprise you because courage in this framework looks nothing like what we've been told it looks like. So be well. I'll see you in the morning. Let's set you free.